Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Alessandrini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom O'Gorman. Tom, how's your solenoid doing?
Dang it, I was going to do a thing about the news. Live from on-site at Road America. Look at me behind me. I'm losing the sunset a little, though, because we took forever. And by we, I mean me.
The sun really did change behind you in the time it took us to get ready.
Dude, it's crazy. I know this is terrible audio content again, but the tree line behind us visibly changed colors just today because it's like turning into fall, and it happened so fast. We could literally, like, by the end of the day, it's like, that's oranger.
So that's the front straight of Road America behind you, right?
Yeah, so if you're not listening on video, I'm sitting in the control tower where we commentate for qualifying, and I'm sitting like, the start stand is right there, right behind me, and then the front straight's right behind that. And the tree line that I'm pointing at is the one that's like along the main road across in Paddock. That's where I'm at.
I keep forgetting that the runoffs are at Road America this year. For some reason, like every time I'm like picturing the runoffs, my brain just goes to VIR because that's where it's been for like the last couple of years.
I've been doing the same thing. I kept forgetting that I'm not going to VIR, and I'm really glad I didn't just start driving to VIR.
That would have been a disaster. You would have just had to get on a plane, right? Like you're just like, okay, yep. And then the annoyance doesn't start there or stop there because then you need to fly back to whatever airport that you left. And VIR is not near any airports.
Nowhere. Nothing.
Yeah.
But it's been nice. And my solenoid, that doesn't exist. That's a made-up word. Just use whatever word it actually is.
Tom thinks a solenoid is a made-up word, but it's an actual thing. And this is the segment of the show where we get Tom to tell us what a solenoid is.
I don't know what it is because it's a made-up word. I don't like when people make up words. We do it. We make up words to gatekeep motorsports, and we use these stupid words like fluffing. And then we have to explain what it is. We should just say what it is, you know?
Like boogers?
Like boogers. Yeah, exactly.
Look at Miss Jackie post a freaking. All right, you got that from Google. There's no way you just like.
Yeah, okay. That's the AI auto response. It's a device comprised of a coil of wire and the housing of movable plunger armature. That's also a made-up word. When the electrical current is introduced, because I don't know what that is. Make it a word I know. The solenoid converts electrical energy into mechanical work. Anyway.
So basically,
DJ, how are you?
Tom, it's a metal pin. And when electricity is ran through the coil, the metal pin gets like magnetized like up, and it will like open a valve or move something or something. But it's just basically like a coil of wire that when electricity passes through it, it turns into a magnet and it shifts the pin of the thing up, the armature.
Got it.
Okay, so it's used in like water. It's used in electricity.
I think electrical. What did you call it? Electric magnet coil sounds way cooler.
Okay. Or you could just say solenoid.
I know. I'm a little delirious from 7 hours or 8 hours or 9 hours of qualifying
commentary. Oh, that's right.
So you're getting fresh me.
Tom's already podcasted all day.
All day. How are you?
Good. I didn't get to watch any of the runoffs today, so hopefully it was awesome.
Well, there wasn't much to watch because it was audio only audio only qualifying.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is there like an archive of that so I can listen to it tomorrow or?
Yeah, but we're also calling tomorrow, so you could listen to that too.
But
it's all on YouTube, so you can just go back and watch the live YouTube video. It's the Flagtronics screen where they show the track map of all the cars going around, and it's like labeled per flag status and car number, so we can like see who's where on the track, but there's no actual like video.
Are you ever on video?
No, I'm never on video.
Boom. Lizard Brains podcast got him. He's on video now. Let's go.
This is the only thing I do on video.
Good. Awesome.
That's because you pay me enough for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the big podcast bucks. You'll be on video when it comes time to broadcast the races and stuff, though, right? Like they'll like flash to you guys or anything?
No, my body never appears on camera, but all of the races are fully broadcasted, like full TV package, graphics, like everything.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm excited to. When does the racing start? Does it start on Friday?
Friday morning. Yeah. Actually, that's kind of going to be our topic this week because I was typing in the Discord and I want to hear about your weekend first. I went to a wedding. The Discord kind of like, hey, who's going to be at the runoffs? And then I started typing like the classes that I'm commentating. And as I was typing them all out, I realized this may not mean anything to any of these people. So instead of doing that, I was like, these people meaning you listening. It's like, do you even know what this is? Do you even care? Should we talk about it? So we actually have some like pretty decent questions that I never would have thought to answer. But we'll get there. Hey, did you dance with your sister?
No, we left early.
Oh, okay. That's okay too.
Yo, I've never been to a Greek wedding before, and this was a Greek wedding. Have you ever been to a Greek wedding, Tom?
No, but I've seen the movie.
I've never seen the movie, so I don't know. You tell me if it lines up, okay? So first
Okay.
off, I don't know what they were just throwing money at the bride and the groom, like dollar bills, just like making it rain, like the whole night, and then it was all over the dance floor, and they were dancing in like this big circle that like spiraled in on itself, and I'm just watching all this money get destroyed, and I'm like, guys, that's at least a tire. And by the time we left, it was like at least 2 tires of money laying on the dance floor. And I was just like watching this beautiful money get destroyed by drunk people dancing on it.
I think that's what people without hobbies like this do is they go to weddings and they just like throw money and like do whatever they want. I don't
This is Tom's view of like a quote unquote normal person.
Right, like what do they do when you don't have a hobby that costs you most of your money? Apparently you can just throw it around
You
on the dance
throw it.
floor.
Yeah, you throw it and let it get ripped up by children.
So wait, did you leave early because you were like scooping money off the dance floor and you didn't want to get caught? Did I just put two and two together?
I tell you what, man, if I brought my robot vacuum there, I would have just been like, all right, little buddy, you've been training for this, and just freaking let it loose. That
You'd
would
be
have
like,
been the
"Hey,
move.
I'll give you 10%."
Yeah, it's just a robot. It has no idea what it's doing. It would just go out there and start cleaning.
Yes, master.
Uh, but yeah, that was interesting. But I think either the DJ has completely lost his hearing, or uh, him being a foot behind the speakers was a completely different experience, because I don't like being at loud things, but this was like uncomfortably loud to the point where like I just went outside and like hung out with other people like standing around in the rain, cuz that was a more enjoyable experience than like getting blasted by sound. It was
Bummer.
it was so loud. I don't know, maybe that's my old man coming out of being like the music's too loud. But yeah, it was just kind of uncomfortable, and yeah, and I think my sister was kind of feeling the same thing, so we left. That was the wedding.
Did was it at least good music?
It was so loud that it was like distorted coming through the. I mean, it was just wedding music. It was just like whatever. Um,
Gotcha.
uh, but it was so loud that these like 1,000 watt like DJ speakers were like distorted because it was like trying to put out too much sound. So
That's kind
my
of nuts.
my amateur audio engineer inside of me was dying.
Did you go up to the DJ and be like, "Hey,
Hey,
you're overblowing the speakers.
hey,
Hey,
I have a
hey, your
podcast.
levels are wrong."
I have a podcast and you're
I
doing
have a
this wrong.
Oh, that'd be great.
I don't think it would be that good. I mean, it might make a good podcast story, but that's about it.
So, so was the wedding the main thing this weekend? You didn't do any motorsports?
Nope, no motorsports, Tom. I'm gonna make up for it on the upcoming weekend, but yeah, this last weekend was nothing. I did some iRacing on Sunday. That was about it.
Was it refreshing?
What, iRacing?
Not having to travel and go do something and just like being able to,
Oh,
what am I going to do tomorrow?
I did go. We did take the electric car, so we took the Bolt on a road trip.
Okay.
It was
That's
kind of
not
nice. Well, we had to do like fast charging and stuff like that. I mean, obviously
Sure.
that's not motorsports, but continuing on with my electric vehicle experiment, it was fine. So I have an adapter to charge at Tesla superchargers, because they just opened that up literally like the day after I bought my Bolt. They like finally opened it up. They were talking about doing it for years, and I got lucky. So I had a little adapter that I can like use to hook up to the Tesla network. And we stopped like maybe like 10 minutes from my sister's house, ate some like Coney Island like Greek food, um and went to Target for a trinket Christine wanted, and then we got back to the car, and we had at that moment in time we had enough range to get back home, but then we did a bunch of driving around, And so then we only had the charge for like another 10 minutes on the way home, and we were back. And we were like 2.5, 3 hours away. And it like the charging maybe added 10 minutes of time like to the whole like trip, because the first time we stopped, we were going to stop anyways. But instead of just parking in a parking lot and the car just sitting there, it was sitting there getting a charge. It was
Yeah.
actually perfectly fine. It was perfectly normal and cool. So
I agree with you. I'm going to tell a story, but the way that came out sounded like you were justifying the fact that you had to stop multiple times. It's totally fine. It's great. I liked it.
well, it's like you park in a parking lot. You just pick a parking lot that has a charger, and then
Right.
like normally they put these chargers like we went to that restaurant, and then there was like a mall right there, and then there was a Target, and there was just a bunch of stuff like within immediate walking distance, and so we just did that, and then when we were done, we just went back to the car, and we had like you know another 100 and something miles of range added to the car, just like if we parked it in a parking lot, except now it's like somebody came by and like filled it up with gas while we were like shopping.
Right. So when I had the rental car that I told the story of last week, I was at Coda and I had like a 3 hour break in the middle of the day for schedule. And I would go out to lunch and pick a different spot with that had superchargers, and I would just either chill in the car and like decompress for a little bit with the air conditioning running, or I'd go into have some food. I actually enjoyed the lifestyle switch that it made me do by having to take those 20 minutes to like go charge it in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice. It was like a instead of I have to go to this gas station and I have to just sit there and fill my car quickly. It's
And
like
then like get
where
back
in
on the
my day
road.
can I find 20 minutes to take to myself and then also go do something?
Yeah. Yep. And that's just on the road trip. Like most of the time it's like your phone. Like if you think about
Yeah.
how often you have to charge your phone outside of like your house, it's not very often. Unless you count like your car driving around, but I'm not going to count that. But like if you think about like, how often are you like plugging in your phone into like a different outlet, right? Like not very often. That's like basically the same as the electric car. So
True.
but yeah, it was fine. I don't know. I wish it charged a little bit faster, because then every stop could be a 15-minute stop, because the Chevy Bolt charges like relatively slow. So like we just had to
Right.
like, oh, we're gonna get food and then like go shopping, and then, like maybe if the car charged faster, we would have just got food and then like just went back out to the car and had all that mileage anyways. But the Bolt charges especially slow. It's like literally the slowest charging EV I could have bought. But that's also part of the reason why it was so cheap. So yeah, you
Oh, bummer.
get what you get. Yeah, I might take it to
Get what you get.
Putnam. I was gonna take the FRS to Putnam, um, but I'm hearing there's the diff needs to be replaced in the rear, and I have the new diff. I don't think I'll get a chance to swap it in, but there's like a noise on D cell, and it's getting louder and louder. So I'm not gonna risk it.
If you take the diff and you drive the FRS there and then you just start jacking it up, within 7 minutes you'll have at least 7 people around you ready to help you and slash just do it.
You know what? You're right. Or if
But
if
I
I
know
go
I'm
out to the racetrack and blow it up and be like, "Oh, I'm so glad I brought my extra diff."
Yep.
Yeah,
You'd I don't even know who's going, but I know there would be like a swarm of like winning formula and friends just around your
I
car.
probably wouldn't even have to pick up a wrench, Tom. This is
No.
genius. No wonder when you were driving your own S2000, that thing was breaking all the time because you were getting free service on it. Oh,
No,
Tom's a
no, no, no.
genius, everyone.
Damn, I exposed myself.
I like this idea. You know what? I'm going to consider it an experiment.
Hey,
Taylor Orgo goes, can confirm this
just
is how it works.
accept anybody who listened to this when it comes out on Thursday.
Yeah, I don't
That
know
they could
how.
be a problem. Hey, if you listen to this, be quiet.
Yeah,
Don't you don't have to help, but be quiet.
don't ruin science.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
ruin DJ's access and convenience.
No, my science experiment. I'm not doing it out of laziness. I'm doing it out of science.
Science.
We
For
got to
science.
figure out what actually happens.
I think I know what happens. My hypothesis, sorry, it's science. My hypothesis is if you take your car to the racetrack and it breaks, then your friends will help you fix it.
That is true.
That
Sometimes
was actual hypothesis there.
I've seen it what happens where somebody brings a race car that doesn't have all its parts on it, and then they just bring the parts with them, and then the parts end up on the car.
Our friend who listens to this podcast, I'm spacing on his name with the escort, because it's pronounced a little weird. I think his last name I'm missing it, but he brought his car to Solo Nationals broken because he knew if he went to Solo Nationals with a broken car, brought everything to fix it, and planned on fixing it, he would fix it. But if he stayed home, he would find an excuse not to. And he went and he fixed it.
Yeah. That was that remember I think it was Ron Bauer one year got a new Miata from Mazda and then brought like a bunch of STR parts and in the paddock they like STR prepped a Miata and then went and competed in it. I forget what year that happened, but that was a thing that happened.
Yeah, that's cool.
I remember walking by
Yes,
and going
Tim.
like, "Wow,
Tim Over.
yeah, I know it's Tim. I'm blanking on his last name as well. Uh,
Sorry.
I remember walking by and seeing like the multimatic coilovers and was going like, no wonder those are $9,000. Those look trick. They were real fancy.
Yeah, I bet they ought to be.
Yeah. All right, Tom, give us some highlights of SCCA runoffs.
Well, there's not much has happened yet. I also went to Grid Life,
Oh, that's right.
and
I
I
forgot
don't
that
want
you
to
were at
talk too.
Laguna.
Yeah, I was at Laguna too. Dude, this month is wild.
Dude,
But
you're
okay,
having the craziest, like, you're so busy.
I had a really cool weekend at Laguna. I don't want to talk too much about it because I had a lot of privilege to do what I did, but I'm just going to talk like basic high level what I did. So I didn't have a reason to go, other than like I knew it would be productive to go somehow, and I kind of had like a couple of people that I knew were going to be there and whatever. So I just kept my flight and I kept my Airbnb with Renee and I went out. So when I got there, I learned for GLTC, they hadn't brought the dyno, so they were just going to kind of run the weekend off of the best they could without a dyno. But Abe also forgot his laptop with AIM Race Studio, and they have the aims that they can put in the cars for tracking data, but they didn't have anybody accessible like quickly to able to just jump in and do data. The other thing they talked to me about is Renee didn't have anybody to do like video running, so like going around and picking up like these two cars hit each other, let's grab their videos. So it turned into I don't have anything. It went from I have nothing to do to I was more or less video collection, data compliance check, data review, and I tried to do my absolute like best to be positive like influence with all the stuff that they let me help with. So it was really fun. It was probably the most fun I've had at Grid Life since even before I was racing, like mid 2022. It was so much fun to do that, and it was really interesting being on the other side when you have all the drivers and you have to go to their car and you're pulling their data, and it's like they don't have an option because they have to either do that or get DQ'd because there's no dyno.
Yep.
Uh, they have my ear for like 45 to 60 seconds, and whatever they say to me in those moments, like it's just a very fun thing to be on the other side of the curtain, knowing exactly how to put myself in what they're doing and what they're feeling and what they're going through and whatever, and then just being able to stand there and like I can't share my thoughts. I don't want to share my thoughts. This is just a fun little like one-sided. You can
Yeah.
talk at me as long as I'm going to stand here. All the data's done, and walk off. Um, so yeah, I had a ton of fun doing that, but it basically meant that I like my days just evaporated. I just did that from the start of Friday all the way through the end of
So that was like a
Saturday.
full-time thing then.
Yeah, and I put in as much effort as I wanted to to do a good job with it. Like they didn't ask me to do half of what I did, but I really really wanted to like I said, be a positive influence of like here's how powerful this can be. Here are some things that I see that maybe you don't normally look for because you just have a dyno instead of an aim, you know, data set to work with after every single session.
Yeah.
Um, so I just enjoyed it.
How many
It was a lot
aims
of
do
fun.
they have?
They have 4, and then I also just pulled aim data from the top 3 cars every session. Top
Okay.
2. So I was getting like a variety of data from random cars mixed with like consistently I was pulling Matan and then the other guy Justin who was in the BMW that won one race.
Dude, that
Um
that guy looks super solid on the live stream. I only watched race 1. I didn't watch any of the races yet, but
yep.
on race 1 you could just tell like he was like just a whole nother level of comfort around Laguna Seca compared to everyone else.
Yeah, and that showed on data. Like you can see everything and you could see the changes that they were making per session and you could see what the other driver thought of the changes they made.
Yeah,
Like
it like told
it
its
was
story.
exactly. The story tells itself, and then you get like this firsthand account of what that person's perception of the story is.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah.
a pretty cool thing, and he did a great job. So yeah, it was Matan won the weekend. He won 3 of the 4 races, and then the Justin in the BMW won the other one.
Yeah, I
And
heard I heard Justin broke, which is unfortunate.
he broke in the 4th race on the warm up lap. But anyway, so that's kind of all I want to say about the weekend. I don't want to share any extra details or anything other than I had a good time, and Uh, I don't know. I weirdly enjoy. You know how I really enjoy commentary, and it's like the only thing that can be better is like a really good weekend driving.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
That was in there somewhere?
Yeah, it was like I just had a good time doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was my job, if it would start to feel like work though. It probably would.
I mean, I could see that because it would just be like it'd be all the same. You'd be seeing the same stuff. You'd be saying the same stuff, right?
That's the thing is it depended on if what I was doing
Was changing anything?
mattered exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of why this weekend was valuable, I think, or like positive because there was no dyno. So what I was doing was like extra valuable. They didn't do anything. Like it wasn't like this car's cheating, DQ it, and they did that or something. But the fact that there was no dyno meant that me pulling data after every session was like important instead of just like a free for all.
I think that's actually like I think that's actually probably an effective way to ensure compliance. If like if I don't I'm not saying Grid Life is going to do this or even that they should do this, but if everyone had an aim in their car where you pull like acceleration traces, it would be really obvious if somebody's like completely out of whack, right?
Yep.
Unless unless everyone's cheating, then you can't tell.
Right. Well, that's why. Never mind. That's why the reference point car should never be the car that's winning. So
Yeah,
yeah,
basically, yeah.
yeah.
For their acceleration curve, literally just for that. Miss Jackie said NASA was trying to do that.
The problem is it takes a really, really specific set of people to make that work. I think like you can't just have a good data guy. You can't just have a good race director. Like there needs to be like it would basically involve restructuring what all of us know of whatever series to like make that sort of compliance checking like totally work. Because even like after every SRO race that I did, I would have to pull off into a staging lane. They would pull my data directly from the car before it ever left basically just the other side of the pit wall. And then I could go back. So they always had everything. But they were structured that way. So you like it takes a team of people to do that instead of just work it in somewhere.
That would be cool. Dude, I'm thinking like future. You know how like the aim is it's a little clunky to like pull data off of cuz you got to like get the Wi-Fi or whatever. What if like
Yep.
I'm thinking future. What if so you were in a series and everyone had to have this like data acquisition thing. It's just part of being in the series, just like having a rain light. And as you drove by like a scanner, it would just like yoink, 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 all like just be
Yeah.
pulling data off of every car that's coming off of the racetrack. And that way, if anything was weird, like if you when you overlay all the data, you could even have I'm thinking future, like you could have an algorithm that would find anomalies for a human to look at to be like, yeah, that is weird, or oh, that algorithm's just doing weird stuff. That would be super legit.
It would be super legit. And I honestly think like the only reason that doesn't happen is because it's such a niche thing for anybody. Like how many people would actually be able to use that? It's like mm, 30 race series around the world. There's like seven sanctioning bodies that run competition in the US. You know, obviously that's small scale road racing. I'm saying like if you blew it up to drag racing and everything, then all of motorsports maybe. But
I could see
what
like
what
so.
we're talking about is practical for like a pretty small group.
Yeah,
But I want
yeah,
to do that. I actually was studying how to build math channels, and I started to learn some more stuff about AIM that I've never done because it's not productive for driver coaching, but it's really productive for compliance checks and like studying what the cars are doing.
yeah,
I really wanted to like learn how to do that. So I never quite got the equation that I wanted, but it was fun to like play with. And it's basically like plugging in Excel equations into AIM. And then AIM will pull like different parameters from different places and create like it can create an ideally rough or a roughly amount of like how much throttle did you use for the lap and like a throttle trace based on G forces mixed with these other channels. Does that make sense?
yeah. That's kind of cool. I
So
didn't
like
know
if
AIM
there's
could
not a
do that.
throttle trace, I knew it could do it. I just never had a reason to learn.
Yeah,
And now I kind of learned it. So that was fun. And Abe and I were like learning it together. We were watching a little YouTube tutorial at the end of the first day
nice.
after we were going through stuff. It was cool.
That's the best way to learn everything. I would say 95% of the stuff I know how to do in Excel is from YouTube. So,
Right.
yep.
And then we both hit a spot where, because the concert was going on, and we both hit a spot where we're like, it started to get a little complicated. We're like, do you have the bandwidth for this? No, not
Mm,
really. Okay, let's
okay.
not do this right now.
Yeah. Let's call it quits.
Yeah. So then we were done. But yeah, that was my weekend at Laguna. It was really nice. And then I had a rental car that it was a Camaro that I did not drive at Laguna Seca, and you will never see video of. And I also got to drive a Turbo Miata GLTC car on Sunday, which was pretty fun.
So
That was all the driving I did.
theoretically, what lap time does a rental Camaro do around Laguna?
I didn't want to find out if I had gone on track how long the brakes would probably not last, so I never really did a full lap. Or if I was going to do a full lap, I would. If I was going to go out, I wouldn't have done a
Yeah,
full
you
lap.
wouldn't have done a full lap. You would have just done
No,
the fun sections and then took it easy in the hard braking sections. Yeah. Did you get scared by who's that? Greg behind you?
that's Greg.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
It looks like you saw a
I've
ghost.
never, I've never podcasted with someone else in the room before. Oh,
Tom's
okay.
easily
Uh,
spooked.
yeah. So I would, if I was going to go out, I would have just drifted the corners
Yeah.
kind of and played with the turns.
If you went out, but like that would be reckless. Like
Like that one time, if you were to take that NSX on Mid Ohio.
yeah, when like nobody else should definitely not drive that NSX, especially on a racetrack. That would be
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And then okay, so then I came to the runoffs, and I think I said this at the beginning already, but basically I wasn't sure as I was asking, hey, are any of my friends going to be here? It brought up some like, yeah, I guess I've never really thought about this about the runoffs, or I've never thought about this about even SCCA club racing, or how does this actually work in this club racing? Because I only have ever done like autocross with SCCA, or I've only ever done club racing with NASA. So I was kind of just going to pull those up. But if you're not familiar, the SCCA runoffs are their road racing national championship. And we're at Road America this year, but it kind of moves around every 1 to 5 years, depending on what they do with scheduling. It's a one race to win the championship, like single 40-minute sprint race. And you have to qualify in for the year. Once you qualify in by doing a certain number of events, then you get to come here on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You get a session per day, just one, and your best lap from any of those sessions counts for qualifying. Then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every single class gets its own 40-minute race. So I think there's 25 races, and it's just like literally 8 to 5 p.m. solid racing, like all day for 3 days, which is pretty awesome. But it does take forever to do. So it's like a full week. It's like solo nationals, but then there's like a little bit to do instead of nothing to do and then like a ton.
And
That
you're
makes sense?
driving almost every day except on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're just kind of waiting around for your race.
Yeah, so there are people that'll like plan a vacation on Friday, Saturday if they race Sunday, but only qualified, you end qualifying on
Ooh,
Thursday.
that doesn't sound too
So
bad. Well, there's also a lot of people who will they'll bring multiple cars for to race in a bunch of different classes.
yeah.
And like that's the dream right there. That's like some iRacing level of like, oh, now I'm gonna race a GT4 car. Now I'm gonna race a Formula
Yep.
Ford, and now I'm gonna race. Yeah.
Oh shoot, what is it? Okay, so there's a guy here. This name will be people will know this name, Tony Ave. Um, he runs a Trans Am team, I'm pretty sure, and is a car builder. But he's running in GT1 in a Trans Am car. He's running in GT3 in a tube frame like silhouette Mazda car. He's running in Touring 1 in an AMG GT4 car, and he's running in something else that I forget. But yeah, he's literally doing what you just
Four
said. He's playing
races.
iRacing in real life. Four
Yeah.
races. He's got
Oh,
like a GT4 car and a Trans Am car and this and that. Yeah.
that sounds amazing. You would have to have like a crew. Like you can't do all that on your
Oh, yeah,
own.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was hoping we would be an hour earlier, but it's my fault. So behind me is where paddock would be. I mean, it's literally like pro racing. The amount of infrastructure and stuff that's in this paddock. It's like the same as WRL, and like it's really high level. So no, those guys that are doing that, it's not like they have a 4-car hauler like Andy Smedegaard and just like show up.
Yeah, and they're just like, and now I'm gonna take the GT1 car off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. They walk up and the car's ready for them to go, and they get in the car and then they get out.
Yeah, that's
But usually they're like the enthusiasts that would want to be pro racing, or they have done pro racing, or what, like there's no guy that's just here to make money, really. Like
yeah, I
some pro teams are just a business,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's not really it's not really here.
Well,
Um
there are teams there that their business is like having SCCA racers like, have that arrive and drive experience.
yeah.
So,
Or like I said, they run their own shop. So they're kind of like an Andy Smedegaard, but then they show up like with a fleet of people. They don't just like show up by themselves with one person who might be able to help.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
Andy's nuts.
Andy is kind of a little bit of a one-man show, isn't he? Well,
He
hold on,
literally
let's
like sometimes brings another person.
yeah, I don't want to say that because
Oh,
the people that are helping him are legit, like taking on a lot to keep the show rolling. So I don't want to. I said one man show, but then I'm thinking of like Kirsten and like Dana and Emma and all those people like running around like doing stuff. So
I was gonna say that I way undersold Kirsten because she does all of like the
yeah,
administrative and like keeping things in line and fueling and tire pressures and all that stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah. So it's a brother
I'm saying
sister
like when a
show.
car goes in a wall, Andy's the only one there. You
Yeah.
know, the
Okay.
rest of the
Yeah.
people are like, "How can we help?"
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was gonna scroll up. Where did I ask about? I was kind of typing the classes. How many days ago was that?
I think a
Weekend.
lot of that was in the general chat. Which, by the way, if you're like, what are they talking about? We have a Discord. That's where most of the community hangs out and chit chats with each other. That's where a live audience is watching us record this right now. The link to the Discord is in the podcast description. So, whatever app you're using, there's a way to get to the description. If you just click on that link, if you've never used Discord before, it will ask you like 3 questions. You'll have an account and then you'll be in the Discord. It's super easy. And Discord's a great platform and we really like it. That's why we're using it to record the shows. And that's why we used it to kind of house like the home base for our community that we're super happy with. So,
Yeah. Oh, I love you guys.
did you find it?
Okay, so I did. The first question or kind of comment was from Liam, and he said, "I've been doing mostly SCCA stuff, but with autocross and time trials, and I have no idea what the runoffs really is. I'd super love a breakdown of what it is and why I should care. What the classes mean. Is it still a good spot to start getting involved when things like GLTC are out there?" Well, that's a big question. That's a lot of stuff. Okay, so I explained how the week works. Does that all make sense? I know you kind of know what it is, DJ, but did I cover it well enough?
I think you did. Like you just got like there basically isn't practice sessions unless you count like the fact that you get 3 quali sessions.
And like you have to race a certain number of times this year to even be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to qualify for the thing. Which is just it's not like you I don't even think you need to place well. You literally just need to participate and then you can go to the runoffs, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah,
Like if you just go and do like extra super terrible in the biggest class, you might not, maybe. I don't know. No one's really doing that.
yeah. I think if you're willing to make the investment to go to the runoffs, you're not
Yeah,
the lowest rung on the ladder at your regional races. So
not likely. Um, so there are, like I said, a total of 25 classes and they fall within a bunch of categories. I don't need to explain them all like crazy, but there's I'll start with touring. Touring is just like street cars with like the same autocross mods that you can kind of do, but each car is like bespoke to what it can do. So it has a spec line that tells you like for an RX-8 you're allowed to do these shocks, these wheel widths, and these like exhaust. And then like for a Mustang you can do these other things. So the rules for that is like kind of insane to like actually say, but for the most part they're like basically unmodified, stripped, caged, stock engine within the last 15-year cars. They race on Hoosiers still, or like slicks. Then there's production, which means it's a production chassis, but it has to have the exact same engine that it came with, but you can build the motor to within a spec of its life, and you can put flares and you can chop the roof off the car if it was a convertible, and you have to run race slicks, and you can't run any aero though, because that wasn't a thing when production was invented in the 60s. So that has like 60 some years of pedigree behind it, and they're like the weirdest little race cars that don't exist in any other thing but vintage,
yeah,
but they're badass. They're so cool and they're so fast. They're like a little faster than GLTC
there's
at
like
the top
a
class.
there's like a particular BMW that drives around without a roof or a windshield that is like ultra cool.
It looks like a submarine half underwater. It's just like sleek all the way back and then it rounds back down
I bet
with a little roll cage.
the driving experience of that car has to be super cool because you're
Yeah,
just in it.
I would. Right. It's kind of like probably like driving Alex Jones's Solstice, where it's just like a metal bathtub around you, and you're just like in this trough.
The
Have you
view,
ever driven that car?
yeah, I have. The view out of it when you don't have A pillars is actually kind of cool.
It's super cool. So production has I should have said touring has four classes. Production has three, and then there's GT, which are usually they're all like tube frame silhouette cars. You have to run the engine of the body of the car that you're replicating, basically. So like if it looks like a 370Z, it has or a 350Z, it has that engine, but or a Nissan engine, let's say. But that's kind of it. They're basically not cars. They're like a little tube frame stock car thing with different bodies put on it. And there are 4 of those. Then there's formula classes, which are everything from like Formula V, like iRacing, all the way up to Formula Atlantic, which is like X Pro formula cars. There's prototype, which has 2 levels: bike motors and car motors, like faster and slower, essentially little prototypes with like the full body work and the aero and all that. They're the fastest. What did I miss? And then there's a bunch of little one-off classes that are like B spec, which is what I started racing in my Honda Fit. There's obviously Spec Miata, everyone knows, and now Spec MX-5. There's American Sedan, which is like the dumbest mix of like you can throw the biggest motor in and like build it, but then also you can only run 275s on an 8-inch wheel.
And I think they also have limitations on like the brakes you can use, so it's like little tiny
Tiny little
brakes and
brakes.
yeah.
Yeah. So they're like oval track stock car almost things, but they're all production chassis like Mustangs and Camaros, American Sedan. And that class is rowdy. I want to drive one someday. I missed one more. There's one other cool one I missed. Spec Racer Ford, which are obviously in iRacing, but I don't think people really drive them in iRacing, and they're like super popular here.
Yeah, it's in iRacing they don't really drive like cars. They do this weird thing where like the faster you go, the more you understeer. And I've been told that the iRacing's trying to fix that. But yeah, it's you shouldn't gain rear grip as you gain speed. That's not how those work unless they had a big wing on
No.
the back, which they do not.
Well, you drove the one in real life. Did you ever talk about that on here?
I think so, and it drove nothing like the iRacing one. It drove like a car, and the iRacing one does not drive like a car. Crazy.
It's insane that there are still cars in iRacing that don't drive like cars, and like a lot of them.
I would say
Um,
about half of them don't actually drive like a car should drive. At least half.
and yeah, we're not saying it doesn't drive like that car should. We're saying it doesn't drive like a car does.
At
Like
all.
it doesn't play by the same physics or something.
Yeah. It's like it has like
Okay, so
weird quirks. But anyways.
that's like the summary of the categories, and across all those different categories, which is covering obviously like the most basic touring cars all the way to GT to Formula prototype and all this. There are 25 classes, and each one gets its own race. So it's like it's a prestigious thing because it's probably the longest running amateur national championship, like road racing motorsports in the country by like a long margin.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I believe that basically all club racing, sprint racing is basically chasing the clout of what this has, with the 60 years. This is the 60th one. So whatever you think of it, I'm not here to like talk about what I think of it necessarily. 61st. Oh, because it's the 60th anniversary. Because why? Because COVID. He's not listening anymore. I got a peanut gallery. Sorry. Oh, I get it. I'm not going to say that. Okay, so it's the 61st one.
We'll never know.
My friend behind me is getting snarky. I'm not going to throw him under the bus. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of what it is, and I think it kind of sets the standard for what the clout and what the like journey of a like amateur grassroots sprint racing like thing is. This is what I grew up like. I was obsessed with this, even though I didn't know what it was, because it was at Mid Ohio for like 16 years, no, 12 years or something, and it was all the years that I was a kid. So when I was growing up, I was going to the runoffs, not knowing what it was, but watching all of these same categories and types of cars race each other 20 years ago, like in the mid 90s, like watching Spec Racer 4. And like at the time, the touring car was like the Dodge Neon was the car to have. And if it spun and went to the grass just right, it would flip. And I thought that was the best thing ever. So like, the runoffs were my favorite
Because
race
the
weekend to
stakes were
watch
so
because it was like,
high. If he messes
yeah,
up, he flips.
yeah. Back when I think all kids think crashes are cool. You have
Oh,
to get into motorsports
absolutely.
to like learn that they're not cool.
Yeah, like you have to learn that like people are having really bad days. But like I remember watching like NASCAR as a kid. I remember I think at one point I turned to my dad and I went, "Are they gonna crash?"
Yeah. Please.
My dad's answer was probably something like, "Yes, almost certainly they will crash."
I was watching some late night show this week, and I think one of the hosts made a joke that like we watch politics because it's basically like watching an automotive race where everyone just hopes everyone's going to crash. And I was like, oh, they're so right. Damn. Um, okay, so where do I go next with the runoffs? What did he ask? He asked what it is, why I should care. why you should care, I think, is kind of what I just said. I don't know that you have to care, but I think it's cool. There's usually, okay, of 25 races, there's usually 10 incredible ones, 10 hit or miss, kind of like they're worth watching and you don't feel bad at the end, but like there's not a lot of racing. And then there's, a couple of like real duds. But it's all broadcast. It's taken very seriously. That's why I'm here. I'm part of the commentary team. And it's like me and Greg Creamer talking about these people who spent their entire year trying to win an amateur championship. And like sometimes like 3 or 4 of the races are incredible, which I talked about last year's like couple really, really good races.
And there's something extra cool about like watching a broadcasted race when it's a bunch of amateurs, because these, for the most part, besides the guy that we talked about that is arrive and drive to his 4 race cars or whatever, but for the most
Yeah.
part, I would say 90% of the people that are at this race, maybe even more, they built the car themselves. They wrench on the car themselves. They trailered it to the track themselves. They will fix it themselves. And this is like the highlight of their year and potentially their whole racing career, if we want to call it that. And that's like the anticipation, the stakes. Like, we want to talk about the stakes. I think it's higher than professional racing, because a pro crashes a car. It's really not that big of a deal. But like the stakes, like they want to win just as bad as somebody who's driving $1 million car. But the stakes are so much higher than if something goes wrong, because that might be it for them. Like they might not be able to race again. They might not be able to rebuild that car. Like the stakes are higher. I think it's more interesting to watch. It's almost like watching like college sports instead of pro sports, because it's not as like there's not as many resources going into it, so it's not as figured out. So
Yeah.
there's just more chance for drama, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I want to stay away from like too heavy of comparison because the point is not to like compare it to NASA or Grid Life or something, but I would say this is what it is and why it's special to watch. And like you talked about the broadcast and these people, what you described is basically just club racing. Like we love this because of that. We want to win as bad as Formula One, but for no reason. Or we want to like be as many events as possible because our friends are here, whatever. But why is it different than NASA a little bit? NASA's broadcast isn't this yet. Maybe they'll get there, but like you could watch NASA racing, it would look very similar if it was broadcasted this way, probably
Yeah.
with within the noise, but they don't do this. So this is cool. Grid Life does do this, but I would say Grid Life's is just a totally different watch experience when you have the super crazy, flash sprint races, and there's not like there's not one race that feels like a big deal at Grid Life. Does that make sense?
I
There's a
think
bunch of races.
I think they do a good job of
Um,
making every weekend feel like a pretty big deal, but if it was
exactly.
consolidated into a single week, then that would obviously like add to the
Or
there
it'd
has
just
to
be
be a
different. It
word.
wouldn't add to it.
Well, I'm
It
just
would just
saying
be different.
it makes it feel like this particular race is like a bigger deal,
Yeah, yeah, right. Because
because
even when we have to go to the championship weekend and race like Heartland was or like Pitt is next weekend. There's not like one race that counts the most, whereas like this one's just one. So that's why I feel like it's a little different and why I'm still interested in it. If that answers your question of why you should care. Is that how you verbalized it? Yeah. Why should I care?
yeah, it's cool, it's fun, and the Spec Miata race is always good. The SRF race will be
Mhm.
good. The STL, STU, all those races are always like super interesting. Uh, yeah, like there's a B spec will be interesting. There's always
Yep.
race.
And
There's
then there's
always classes where like it's going to be an interesting race, and then sometimes
and
the
the
other classes surprise you.
yep. MP Spear said, interested in understanding the difference between SCCA and NASA. I've come through NASA, will be doing comp school, and my first races soon. I know the Spec E46 crosses pretty well with Touring 3, but that's about the extent of my SCCA knowledge. Um, I think it's just totally different schools of thought of the type of car you're racing, but it's basically the same thing. Like it's a sprint race, green flag race for somewhere between 25 and 40 minutes. SCCA and NASA are mostly doing the same product, but is
Do
that fair to say?
Do you know
I-
if I have a question? Do you know
yeah,
if at NASA's like national championship are they doing just single classes out on track, or is it multi?
no. NASA always mixes classes. I think except for maybe Spec Miata at their championships, but NASA is um so there like I mentioned there's like touring, and then there's like production, and then there's GT. Those are like the three production based um,
That's for
set,
SCCA.
like it for SCCA.
Yeah.
NASA would have like super touring, and then they have a lot of like super bespoke like Honda Challenge and German Touring Challenge, and then they have like single class stuff, and they throw a bunch of classes together when they kind of work. Um, so power to weight is way bigger in NASA, whereas here they do that spec line stuff a lot, where it's like you have this type of car, you can do these things. I also forgot super touring, which is power to weight essentially, but not done the same way. And that looks way more like NASA. Actually, the cars have like you could confuse them with NASA cars. Whereas if you saw a production car, you'd be like, that's a vintage race car. Or if you saw a GT car, you'd be like, that's a Trans Am car. That's probably the closest difference. But I mean, it kind of depends on the kind of car you want to race. There's not a lot of crossover of like where you can run at the front because they're just so totally different in like where they're
I
trying to
mean,
be.
yeah, that's gonna be like every series, like WRL, Champ Car, Lemons,
Yeah,
even like all those cars have to be built to like that specific rule set. Hopefully someday we get to the point where like you just have a car and it's competitive in all these different series, but I don't know if
yeah.
that will ever happen.
Spec me out, I guess. Just change the
Kinda.
brand.
There's like weird differences between NASA and SCCA, I believe, though. I don't know the intricacies of it, and I don't. Please do not send any messages or emails to
Yeah.
explain the differences.
Dude, the last thing we need, or maybe this is great press, is to have that Spec Me Out a Man drama group after us. You remember
uh,
that group?
yeah. That guy makes really interesting videos on YouTube. I'm blanking on what his YouTube handle is. They're actually
I
really
thought it was
entertaining.
Jordan. Jordan F. Jordan,
Jordify,
something like that.
something like that. Somebody
Um,
in the chat, please help me out.
yeah. So I guess I don't know how to go into anything else between NASA. Ultimately, I think they're way more similar than people realize. And I think it's just kind of down to either which group you saw first and like hold value in the style of car. Like I said about production cars. When I see an F production car with like the windshield chopped off and like box flares and these tiny little slicks and no aero, I think it's so cool. But I like grew up watching it, so I don't think anybody automatically thinks that's cool. Whereas when you go to NASA, you see a Thunder Roadster, which like looks doofy as hell. Like maybe I want to
It
drive
really
one of
does.
those, and then you just, you know, no one has a Thunder Roadster and thinks it
I
looks
don't,
awesome.
dude. I don't know,
Hot take.
dude. It's because it's just a tube car. Like it could have looked like anything. Why does it look like that?
Yeah, it looks like a,
It
which we
looks like
just
a
described
shoe.
the other car as a tube too, but it's like a
Yeah.
cool tube versus a bad
What
tube.
is that thing called again?
A Thunder Roadster,
Thunder Roadster. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna.
or if like better example, Honda Challenge, or better example, insert Spec E30, whatever you want to talk about from NASA. Uh, if you thought that was awesome, what you're doing with it is probably super similar at both SCCA and NASA. Um, and I don't know how to tell you if there's another car that crosses over.
All right, I
What are you looking
posted.
up?
Yeah, I posted a photo of it, and then I'm showing it on the video version of the podcast. But yeah, that it could have looked like anything, and it has like these like NASCAR tires on it. Has like a little baby wing in the back, and then the driver just like sits in the middle. It's weird.
That actually, that's a cooler looking picture of them than I than I think they look.
Okay, hold on.
That's a very
Here's another
no,
one.
no,
Here's
that's
another
good.
one.
That's a flattering version. If you think
That's
that
the
looks okay,
flattering
that's
version.
as good as
I
it
still think
gets.
it's weird looking, but okay, this is a weirder looking one.
Yeah, they're just bizarre. But anyway, if you go to your first club race and you see that that's like the class with 15 cars and they have the best race, I could see how you want to run one. I want to drive one, but I could see where that would be like, I'm going to race that.
All right,
That's kind of like how you end up here
John
too.
Hall posted one with like a speed racer livery on it, and that one's legit. That one's
Oh, you
cool.
like that one?
Yeah, that one I like that one. That hit my 7-year-old speed racer cartoon watching self. So, oh man, that's good.
Yeah. I bet they are so fun to drive though with those bias plies on it or those giant sidewalls, and you just rotate. You're at the back basically, so
Yeah.
everything's just like
So
around your shoulders. Oh,
yeah,
it
the
sounds so
yaw
fun.
would be a lot. So yeah, that would be pretty fun. If you have a Thunder
Trying to
Roadster and
see
you
if
want
I,
me or Tom to drive it and talk about it on the podcast, let us know. Hopefully, Tom, so he can make a badass YouTube video out of it.
right, sure. I'm scanning for the next. If there was any other, there was one other one. Nope. We started talking about how driving in Boston is fun.
Is this still in the
Oh, I
general
see.
chat? Because it got way off topic.
Yeah, we have two. We have two like big questions though. Maybe you can give some thoughts on what you think of these. So Liam included the, is this still a good spot to get started, to start getting involved when there's other series out there these days? Without going like too crazy hot, because I'm not here to do that. That sounds exhausting. Do you
Like
do you
like
any
the
like initial impression on that?
SCCA?
Yeah, like pursuing club racing here versus somewhere else, or pursuing the reason to start here or the reason to start a specific place. I feel like we can have a healthy conversation about
I
that
think
without it being like
I think you
this
have
group
to
in this group.
yeah, I think you have to look at like what is the healthier group in your area.
Hmm.
And who like what group has like a class of cars with like a decent population of a car that you would want to own one because you're gonna have to fix it. Uh, drive what will teach you the most, what has the most competition. You put all those things into play. You put all the organizations as an option, and then from there you would just go to whatever you think would help you drive, uh, uh, grow more as a driver. I think that's how you should base that decision because, like Tom said, they're kind of all like they have like weird like culture differences and stuff like that. But those are all very very minor. At the end of the day, it's still just a bunch of racers just trying to do their best. Uh, so just look at what classes fit your budget, have participation, and you know what which like if they're how many events they're doing. You kind of have to weigh it in that. I don't think you weigh it in as like what is the better organization. I think you just look at it kind of a little bit more selfishly.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I think where you are is huge. What kind of car you are interested in driving is huge. I would say SCCA leans and is at this point basically the only place you can club amateur race any style of formula car. Um,
Yeah, so if you want to
NASA
race
does none.
yeah, if you want to race a formula car, like your options are limited.
Right. But honestly, I think it's fair to like cite the cultural skews just a little bit. Like SCCA absolutely skews the oldest of them. I don't want to necessarily say it's old, but the people you will meet here are a little bit older, probably a little bit more affluent and established in their careers and their self, whether they're 28 or 70. Than a lot of the people I meet at NASA and Grid Life. There's a lot more crossover in the NASA Grid Life like vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would
Just
agree with that.
age of people. But I would say NASA skews a little closer to, in the nicest way. I mean this like in a positive way, but like towards the like almost circle tracky um
Like the get her done.
mentality.
Yeah.
Like the no, I don't want to say yeah. There's no tactful way to say it, but yes, that there's like the 3/4 rule, and it's okay to run the guy off track a little bit because that's Robin's racing or something. There's like a little bit more of a that than SCCA and Grid Life. Uh,
And we're saying that basic
yeah.
just on our we both have limited experience with NASA stuff. And
Well,
maybe it's different like for region to region, but like the
yeah,
one
true.
NASA weekend I
Oh,
went to, they were all like hitting each other and high-fiving over it. So like
Okay, that's the other thing. NASA also has a very West Coast flair to it, which is totally different. If you've never been to the West Coast, I don't know how to tell you. West Coast motorsports is just a little bit different, and also NASA has like it's a class, it's a coming together of those two things in all of what I've ever seen, and I've seen it from coast to coast, top to bottom, here and there. I haven't been there a ton though, so DJ is right. Don't take every single thing I say with that, but
I mean
yeah, it's
it's gonna be
like
different
tuner.
region to region. If you think about like your
Yeah, yeah,
autocross
yeah.
regions, how different this region is from that region, it's literally the same thing, except like
Yes.
you're on racetracks. So it could be
I don't know if I'm
wildly different from region to region.
For sure. I don't know if I'm drowning or if I'm fine, but I think I'm fine. I think I meant what I said and said what I meant. Um, so yeah, I guess like when it boils down to it, those things may influence what you are drawn to in the long term. I'm drawn to all three, completely different reasons, and like, but basically they're all the same. That's the reason I'm drawn to all of them and end up at them all. Um,
I
so I totally agree. It does. I don't think you should even pursue a specific sanctioning body. I think you're going to meet an area of like a competition and car style and therefore people around you that you're going to enjoy.
what is the thing from each sanctioning body that draws you to it the most?
Oh, it's just racing. It's not that hard.
All right, I have an answer for this.
You
So
do, really?
yeah,
Okay, tell me.
grid life would be the single class on the racetrack, guaranteed. No matter what weekend you show up to, when
Oh,
you're on track, you're racing against that class. There's no multi-class. I love that. Uh, for the SCCA, I like that. Uh, I like that they have so many events, like just a huge range of like different events you can go to, like whether it's the majors or the runoffs or like a local or whatever. I like that. Maybe NASA does the same thing. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't know if they have like a majors. I think they just have like their regional races, and then they have like a nationals. I like that the SCCA has like major races where it draws people from other regions to like come participate.
yeah.
NASA, if I if I wanted to like really do a class, I think spec E46 is probably the class that I would be drawn to the most, and NASA has that class. But I would have to race against other people that aren't in my class on the racetrack, so then it kind of fights that like
Yeah.
there's not a
Actually,
perfect place for what I want.
you're like I like your practical breakdown because it's safe. I love if I was going to invest in my own racing career right now, I think I would still do GLTC because of that single class. And honestly because of the media. Like the live streaming at every single half the time you race is the most valuable for someone like me who cares about maybe like having that sort of presence. I agree with you. SCCA scale of events is like massive, and it's not just that. You have like obviously autocross and rallycross, this, that, and the other. And then NASA, I actually love. I would love to do NASA every once in a while for the multi-class because I miss like multi-class sprint club racing is like its own special flavor of fun on a racetrack that you really can't get. It's not quite the endurance racing like Champ Car, and it's not quite like GLTC with a single class because there's this like unpredictability that's most of the time fun, but I know you've had really bad experiences with that because of either yellow flags or you've seen crashes and stuff. So like I came that was my first year of club racing was that like mixed class chaos and I just had a blast. Like I freaking loved it. I still wish I could go draft back and drive that car and like see if I was having as much fun as I was,
I
but I
think
almost don't want to it because it was amazing. Go ahead.
I think if and this is how racing always should be, but the lizard gets in the way. I think if I wasn't taking it too serious, I think the multi-class stuff would be pretty fun. But what I don't like is when the multi-class is getting in the way of my own performance because I'm getting held up by a faster car with a slower driver. Like that is the most infuriating thing that ever happens. And you see it all
Sure.
the time. And it's just like
All the time.
my guy, just hold off on this straightaway this once and you'll never see me again.
Here's an interesting thought. What if okay, hang on. I'm going to come back to that because I have a good idea about or I have a thought about the multi-class mix stuff. But
Okay.
what if there was a flag that was a like a straightaway timeout flag, and it's like you have to just not accelerate down the straight because you're being annoying for everybody else,
You're being
and it's
annoying
like, and it's I don't know what color it could be. It could be any color, and you just put it out, and then like if you go above, it's a code. It's a code for 35 for
for
one
that one
straightaway.
person. It will have like their car number next to it and it's
Yeah,
maybe that
that fixes
sounds
all of your problems. But also, you just want to be the fastest car in the race group, so you just like
yeah,
go through them.
but you don't get
Yeah,
to I mean, I guess in NASA you do kind of you're like, yeah, I'm going to do ST1. Boom, done. And now I'm
yeah,
not dealing with traffic or well, you are dealing with traffic, but it's never because you can't get past somebody.
right.
Yeah.
Or I think so for me, I think a car that's just the fastest in a straight line. So like a spec iron car in NASA would be exactly where I want to race
What
because it looks like you're just kind of fast in a straight line. They look terrible to drive in all the right ways, like a club spec Mustang, where it's like positive on the front, swings in the back, just like not that fast but good to drive. I love those cars.
is that what we
That's what I
were
would. That's what
watching
I would get.
at CMP in February where you're like, "Man, that would be so much fun. I wish I just had I
Well,
forget what it was."
I said a Crown Vic,
Oh,
but
that's right.
it's the
You did
same.
say it. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically
I
Tom
said
Tom wants to drive a cop car around a racetrack against other race cars.
I said I want an American Iron Crown Vic.
That would be so silly. You know what? After driving Christian Corey's Crown Vic, which he like swapped a manual into, so it didn't have all like the power loss from like going through a torque converter. It just like went immediately into the like the rear axle.
Yeah.
That car was way faster than you think it would be.
I believe it. And the chassis is better than you'd think too, right? Like, don't you
Dude,
remember how like nice it turns in and then it like floats kind of?
so he put a diff on it too. You got to drive Christian Corey's Crown Vic at some point. So he put it like a clutch type diff on it. It drove more like a BMW than you would ever think it did.
So that sounds like a
Dude, it
blast.
was
This is
great.
why I like kind of unironically tell people what should my first track car be? Crown Vic instead of Miata. Like for the same reason I think I said last week that no Miata's worth $10,000. Every Crown Vic is $1,000. You could just keep buying them.
Matan started well, I think he started in Miata, but he also tracked a lot in a Crown Vic and he's doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someday I'm gonna NASA race a Crown Vic. I'm gonna make it happen, friends. After DJ gets his Porsche and all the other things, the stickers you guys buy are gonna get us.
Yeah, guys, we need to sell a lot more stickers if I'm going to buy my own Porsche.
Yeah.
Uh so my autocross co-driver Peter Schnorr, he actually just bought a Porsche. So I don't know if I ruined the announcement. Don't tell anybody.
Wow. Yeah, that's
He
the same thing.
he bought it like a week ago,
Okay, I won't
so
I won't ask more questions because I don't want you to get in more trouble.
yeah. He may or may not have bought a Porsche.
If he were to buy a Porsche, it would have been last week.
Oh, we're in trouble.
It's a good one. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a pretty good summary of the places you can sprint club race. Other than like BMW, I've never done that. Porsche, I've never done that. Porsche Club,
Oh,
BMW
like
Club.
yeah. I wonder what their numbers are like.
I've coached Porsche Club. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of money. It's pretty okay, but it's just got that weird like affluence taste to it, where it's
Yeah.
like half the people have a coach because you're supposed to, and like they're not really getting better, but you're supposed to hire a coach, so they're like burning money. There's stuff like that that's not happening here. Like these people, for the most part, they love it or they want to win.
I do think it would be fun to do like a spec boxer or something like that, but to my knowledge,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not happening in the Midwest. It's mostly on the West Coast. I don't think there's actually a class over here.
I actually have the kid, the guy Alex,
Yeah.
um, Bill Singer that's been driving with Rockwell and I
Yep.
in
Yep.
the Champ car. He and his dad both have spec boxers, and I'm like dying to go out. Um, and then Chris does too. You know Chris too.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so we have some friends on the West Coast with spec boxers that they make it sound super fun. So we don't have that here that I've seen.
They have
And
big
honestly,
classes
maybe if
too. It's like
50 cars.
yeah, all spec boxers. That sounds amazing. It's like spec Miata, but like the cars are more fun.
Yeah, mid-engine. Ooh.
So
Um,
that would be cool. That would be cool. But as far as I know, in my area, that's not a healthy class.
that is interesting. I've never thought like, what if you were to get a spec Boxster and take it to a Porsche Club race? Do you think it's kind of like going to a Porsche Club autocross, where if you like show up and ruffle any feathers by being competitive, they're just like, go away.
I mean, maybe on some level, but I think the real competitors would be like, "Oh, hell yeah, somebody else to play with."
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I agree.
So
And then there was one other question in
Whitney says yes
this
in the
was like
chat with a laugh face.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh no. Wait, did I stereotype in truth? Um my friend Andy also asked, this is runoffs related, but I think it's an interesting like theoretical discussion. Curious to know your take on combining the prototype classes. Is there a future for these classes in SCCA? I was interested in getting into Formula Cars or Spec Racer, but was put off by the small fields in my area. So the context to this is the SCCA just announced like a restructure of their road racing that I don't know the details of, but part of it is combining the two prototype classes. Like I said, one's primarily car engines, and the other one's bike engine powered.
Engines.
Uh, engines, yeah, and they're basically going to BOP them into the same class in an attempt to consolidate what is basically two classes of like 12 cars. Um, so the theoretical question is, I feel like there's not an organization you go to, they're like, there's the correct number of classes, if not enough, you
Yeah.
know? So this is like the whole thing is consolidating classes that where it makes sense. And do you think that this is okay kind of thing? And is there a future for these in SCCA? I mean, obviously, they're the only place that you can race a prototype like this in club racing, except for when you get to like radicals and stuff at NASA, you can kind of take, but you have no one to race with. So there's at least 10 people here to race with, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there's a future for them, at least for a while. I think
But that's 10
the interesting
people.
question is, how do you handle that big question of, like, what's the actual way and time to, like, mix these things together where you're not completely alienating people, but you're accepting reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you would do it with like, oh, it'd be so tough. It'd be so track dependent because like all the cars would make speed in different ways because they have different aero packages or not, or
Well, I mean bigger picture than that. Not like practically how do you balance two
oh,
prototype styles.
yeah. I I think the issue with doing prototype racing or open wheel racing as an amateur is that like so at like runoffs they'll have 10 people. Cool, you get to race against those people. But for the whole year you just drove around like by yourself.
Or with the other 4 on your team or something, yeah.
Yeah, you're not. I don't know. You don't get a lot of racing practice.
I generally agree that I don't understand racing those types of cars, unless you're, like, chasing a pro career and there's a ladder for it, but that's not really a thing anymore,
I
so
do think they're probably a ton of fun.
I
I,
think that's part of the reason that you race them is because this is one of the only places you can even drive them, really.
yeah.
Like, you can't take them to a track day, you have to rent the track or do this, I guess. But I didn't even want to talk about like why you would race a prototype. I'm saying there's two classes that are kind of doing the same thing. There's a whole database of people and a whole like following of people that like both, but they're both kind of small and they're both kind of hanging on a little too long. And it's time to like face reality of this isn't just going to go on forever because like 10 of you like it. You know what I'm saying? So in every organization and whenever that happens, what's the best way to handle that? To Andy's question so that it doesn't like so it doesn't jeopardize the future of a thing entirely or just chase everybody off. I kind of had some thoughts on it, but I was curious to bring it up because when he asked that, that's the first thing I thought of is like big
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there's some autocross classes like that too that are probably just like hanging on for a little too long. But with autocross, you can kind of like introduce other cars that maybe like could have upset it in the past, but now that the class is dwindling, you can put in it. But with like prototypes and like open wheels, it's like it's kind of tough because yeah, I don't know, like the either you make it where everyone that is currently driving around and the thing that they've had for 15 years is completely obsolete because you introduce something else in there. Like the barrier to entry is so much higher on road racing than it is in autocross. So, um,
True.
also, and then most of the time in autocross, you can go somewhere else with that car. Like so, like if your if your fourth gen Camaro is really good in ESP, and then they threw a Civic Type R in there, you're like, cool, I'll just go play in C Prepared or Cam or whatever, right? Like there's a bunch
Yeah.
of other places to go, but if all you have is this prototype or this formula car, then that's all it's ever going to be. Like you can't do more with that or do less or reclass it to something else or at least as far as I know. I'm not entirely sure. So, yeah, basically I think the way that SCCA does it right now is actually not too bad. Where it's like if you don't make a class at runoffs, uh, I think it's like what, like 2 or 3 years in a row, then like basically the class is dead as far as like national competition. Like you can still do it locally, whatever. Uh, but as far as
Yep.
national competition, like the class like basically kills itself by not gaining enough participation.
Yeah. I That's like a harsh reality, but I do think it's fine. Like in the biggest picture possible. But actually, you made me think about more specifics down to like prototypes and formula cars. Um, do you feel like there's an inherent like wealth that is associated with those cars? Because I kind of do. But then I realized there's like so many people out there with a Formula V who are doing what I did with my Fit, and that's not fair to say, or their
F-
Formula F.
I mean, Formula V that's a really healthy class, and I think it's because of the
True.
barrier to entry isn't as high, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with like Formula Ford. Like the barrier to entry of those cars isn't very high. I think when I'm mostly talking, like I'm talking like the Formula Atlantics, these like bespoke prototype cars that
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe they had population like 20 years ago, but like now they kind of don't. So I
Sure.
think if you have like I don't know what the minimal limit for SCCA runoffs to like keep making a class is, but let's say it's 10. 10.
It is 10.
Okay.
It's 10.
Cool. I'm glad I ended up on that number. Tom was holding up his
Yep.
hands. Um,
If you don't make 10, the next year you're on probation, and if you don't make 10 again, the class is done nationally.
Gotcha.
So it's
So
10 twice.
let's just say you have 10. Wait, if you have 10, is it a problem?
I don't know.
Okay,
Let's go with 10 or less.
yeah, let's say if you have 10, you're good. So what if there's just a diehard for the next 10 years? There's a diehard 10 people that love a particular class and they just keep showing up consistently. Then that class should exist, right?
I kind of think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares if it's small? You got these 10 people that are just like into it.
Okay. So in theory, if you're those 10 people, and the norm here at this race, let's say, we're just gonna get like straight up comparison here. This race, other classes get 50. You still get 10. You get the same 40 minutes to race. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean,
Sure. Yeah,
I
that's the
think,
rules, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think if you're the sanctioning body, SCCA, and you want to introduce a new class, you understand that it might just be 10 people for the next 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think there's also okay, so my question about the wealth was basically to make the point sort of like you can pick whatever. And then the only challenge is, well, I really want to race that. And that's a different conversation, kind of. And I think that's true. I think you agreed, sort of like racing these bespoke cars. But then Raul brings up a really good point. It's basically the same thing that we're just talking about with the
Bro,
money is like the barrier of entry is so high because you have to buy them outright. You can't just build over a period of time. You can't just go buy a stock E36 and get away with it for a year. You know, you
yeah,
have to like go buy a race car.
with
That's an
all the
interesting point I never thought about.
infrastructure, yeah, all the infrastructure that's involved for that, it's a huge, yeah, huge financial investment to
Yeah.
be able to go race one of those cars. But I think the people
So that
that get into those cars, they probably raced cars with doors for a couple years, maybe a decade, whatever, and then they wanted to switch it up. So then they go to like a prototype or a formula car or something like that. I think that's
yeah.
probably most of the people that are driving those cars in the paddock that you're at. I don't think they were like, I'm going to go racing, and they started in a formula car, unless they were like a carter, and then this is
So
where they
yeah,
ended up.
there's a couple probably I'm sure there's a bunch of both of those realms, but okay, so then the class is getting 8 every year in your example. What's the right way to like handle that? Because obviously you can't just be like, and you're gone, because that pisses everybody off. But I feel like there's a really good. What I thought about is basically there needs to be like a timeline rollout with all of this stuff. It's kind of weird to me that there's not like a more public. The more I'm getting involved with like, the more I'm caring about like the structure of these things, like the organizations and whatever. I'm like, there should be a more public timeline on a lot of this stuff. So if you're like gonna combine these two classes, let's say you have like to make it an autocross example, you have oh it's him, sorry. Phone's ringing. You have a like street modified and like an F prepared, let's say, autocross example, or like a GT class and a production class that do the same speed. Is it fair to make them go away, or is it fair to say over this period of time we're going to do these things, and you either have this period of time to figure out what you want to do, or you have this period of time to like conform to the thing we're going to do? Does that make sense? Instead of just saying here's what we're doing,
You're
and it's
saying like
next year.
combine these like wildly different classes that make the same lap times?
Kinda, yeah. Or wildly different prep levels, let's
Yeah,
say.
I think that kind of falls apart because I think the lap times would change drastically track to track.
Maybe, yeah.
So
So then, but so you put it on a 3-year timeline.
I don't think you can do
Even
that though, because that
let's go
might
crazier.
a timeline might just kill the class. People might jump out before their car's completely irrelevant,
Yeah,
right? So that might, if soon as something's on a timeline, you basically killed it, right? Like you're not giving it a timeline to like survive. Like I'm sure there's plenty of examples of classes that got down to 10 cars and then they came back, right? Because maybe
for
the
sure.
community was good and the participation was good and the cars were fine and people figured out stuff that made them more enjoyable to own and like the class made a comeback, right? And I'm sure there's, if you look at participation numbers on a graph for like each class, I'm sure it's like an ebb and flow. But if your class gets below the threshold and then the next year the class as a community couldn't rally together to save it, it's a weak class. Make room for it.
Yeah.
So like
I
imagine like B spec. They like have 9 people this year, which they definitely don't. They probably have like 30, like 40, 50 cars. But imagine they had
25, yeah.
9 people. That community would be like, guys, what are we doing? I know Runoffs was at Laguna or whatever, but we got to make the trip out there to save the class. People would make that trip out there to save that class, and the class would
True.
exist, right?
So we don't yeah, you don't need timelines, you need cheerleaders. That's
Yeah,
so true. There are so many classes that get that, and then you end up with like an influx. Even, I mean, it's basically an influencer.
yeah,
How many people want to race GLTC because Eric Teal raced GLTC?
yeah,
It's like a
exactly.
non-zero value of people.
Yeah. I mean, I would say Eric is probably part of the large reason why I race GLTC.
Yeah. Okay, so we solved it. You just
Yeah.
need influencers. Shit.
I think the community matters more than people might realize. It's like the community
Mhm.
of the drivers and how they're presented out into the public space. I think that matters a lot for people wanting to come in and do it.
I like that. That's not where I thought that conversation was going to go, but I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think that's probably most important. I think the classes that end up falling apart, either those cars went to go do something else, so there's still a place for them to like I'm thinking what
Ooh,
class died last year? Was it GT2?
Formula Atlantic.
No, there it was like a where Trans Am cars were. Didn't that
Oh,
class die last year?
so there were only 7 GT1 cars, but by the time the race actually came around, 5 of them couldn't race. So
Yeah.
by the end of the week, they pulled the race because there was so much attrition.
Okay,
But
that's
they
what
would have still gotten that one more year if they had gone like, guys, we only had 7 cars. What the hell? Right? They still would have gotten one more shot.
yeah, wait, are they there this time?
They're here with 7 cars, so
7 cars.
not
So
for
it's
long.
dead. Okay, so there's still other places to play with those cars like the Trans Am series. The Trans Am series is doing really well, right? So if you want to play with that car, you just go to the Trans Am series. Obviously at the SCCA weekends, that car's not doing well, so it doesn't make sense for the SCCA to keep it around. There's still
Yeah.
places to play with that car. It's just not here.
So I remember why I thought of this even more today because we were talking about Spec Miata, Spec MX-5. This is a super specific example. They just announced Spec MX-5 at the end of last year would become a national class this year, which means basically nothing, but it like functionally means that it's awarded a national championship and it races at the runoffs. So it's like one extra little thing that it has, which matters because of all the things we talked about at the beginning. So there's this new class, and it's basically not. It's not to replace Spec Miata, but it's not because they're that old, right? Like it's a newer car, it's easier to race, it's more relevant.
Uh,
So Spec Miata's not going anywhere really, but
s-
go ahead.
Spec MX-5 is NC Miatas. It's basically like Spec Miata with NC Miatas,
Sure.
which is like
Actually,
2006 to like 2015.
and also if you don't know what that is, but you know what our podcast is, I need to know how that happened.
What an NC
Because
Miata is?
I guess I feel like Spec Miata is so unanimously understood, but I don't know. Anyway, I
There's a lot
we
of
were talking about
people
this.
there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast that don't follow racing at all, Tom.
That blows my mind if that's true.
It is.
Huh.
I know I
Okay, well, I hope you.
Christine's mom listens to every podcast, and she would appreciate that I explained what the difference of Spec Miata and Spec MX-5 is. They're both
You just
Miatas.
earned
One's old Miatas and one's slightly less old Miatas.
you just earned so many brownie points. That's amazing.
Yay!
Okay, so we're talking about so basically Spec Miata is not going anywhere, but Spec MX-5 is a little bit newer. It's a little more relevant. There's like a lot of good reasons to go that way because Spec Miatas are 30 years old, at least 20 years old. Um,
Yeah.
is it okay for them to? Under what circumstance would it make sense for them to like phase out for the better of everybody?
Once they
Because what I started to think about was like, okay, everybody who has a Spec Miata is never going to want that to happen. They would be pissed if they were like, you have to get a Spec MX-5. But in a different reality that, or in a different lens, that actually means they want to pay extra to keep racing a 30-year-old car. They want to pay extra to have to deal with all the extra stuff that goes along with that and break all the time and find parts that are running out and do all of these things that are like kind of a negative. At what point does it make sense for them to like be given a plan to like work towards the new thing? Does that make sense?
I think that will happen organically on its own.
organically.
Yeah, like people who are like, this is the racing that I know, this is the racing I love, they will stay. And I think they will stay a lot of people. I think what would be a fun little game, and we could even set like reminders in our phone. I love setting reminders like decades in the future.
Yeah,
When do you think Spec Miata will no longer be a class at the runoffs, Tom? Will it outlive the runoffs?
I think so. I think vintage racing will start having Spec Miata races,
Ooh,
and I think
it
that they'll be
definitely will.
almost as wild, but probably not like as fully wild. Guys, these people are wild. They do a full race start. The first two cars on the front row are the two cars on the front row are like full brake pedal and full throttle before the green flag has come out, trying to hold everybody back. And the next seven cars behind them are literally on each other's bumpers, just
Just
pushing. And then
bumping
as
and
the green flag gets anticipated, they start doing this snake. I'm doing flat hands. They start doing this snake, and you can see they're like losing contact patch on the front of the bumper because it's curved, right? And then the green flag comes out and they all like barely expand. It's crazy. Like, I don't think vintage are going to be doing that, but Spec Me Out is going to be around for a while.
I okay. What year does it die? It's 2024 right now. This is going on the internet, Tom, and that means it's gonna last forever. Our predictions right
So
now.
we both have to set reminders right now.
I'm gonna set a reminder in my phone. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I am too.
I
I don't know
think
how to do that.
okay.
Oh, Siri.
I'm thinking like 30 years from now. I think it will go another 30 years and then it will be dead.
Spec Me Out dies in 20. What years did 2064.
2054.
2054.
54. So October 10th, then the 90th running of the or the yeah, the 90th running of the runoffs will be the last runoffs for Spec Miata. Miss Jackie said 2050.
I think that's too long. I was going to go like
You think it's going to go longer than that?
no, 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 I think that's too long.
Or not as long?
I want to go like 2037. I'm doing 2037. Hang on a second. Hey Siri, set a reminder for today in 2037 to ask if Spec Miata is dead yet.
I like this. Okay.
Oh, it says today. Hang on. Why does it say today?
All
I'll
right.
figure this out later.
We're doing
Take your bets,
I
people. If you're listening at home, put this in your phone. Take a bet. What year does Spec Miata die? Where did this podcast go?
Uh, okay, hold on. I need to make sure that you're in here. Talk to Tom O'Gorman about it. Episode, because we're gonna refer back to this episode. What is this? 115?
115 from October. Well, you'll know 30 years.
Yeah. Okay, so I put Expect Me Out of Dead. Talk to Tom O'Gorman about it. Episode 115 of the podcast.
Oh, I just got so excited about the future. Okay.
uh,
Well, I think that's about it about the runoffs as far as I have. I'm looking forward to commentating. I haven't done commentary much this year at all because I was doing it a lot because of sim racing, and now that sim racing's dead, I don't do a lot of commentary except this event every year. And I'm excited to walk around in the paddock tomorrow because I got here late last night, and tonight I'm in here, so I haven't really like gone out there yet.
Tom, do you want to commentate sim racing?
I've been getting pretty excited to commentate some kind of sim racing. Why, you got ideas?
Yeah, Tom, we might start our own sim racing league. You guys heard it here first.
Oh snap!
We gotta work out details, but roll in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're gonna do our own thing. So stay tuned.
I would say in the next definitely 2 months, if not month and a half. Keep an eye out.
I would say at least. I mean, it would. I would guess it would start in November.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It'll be
Well, it's
within 2 months, if not a month and a half. It'll already be going. So
okay. Yeah, yeah. 2 months from now, it's gonna be like December. Just FYI.
in a swing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay. Well, a month from now would be a great time to start, but me and Tom have to figure out details.
Yes.
So,
Maybe tell us a little what you want, but not too much. Don't get crazy.
what, me right now?
No, no, no. Our listeners who might want
Oh
to
yeah,
race
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, well, Me and Tom's fun dad, and I'm a competitive dad. I'm like the dad that yells at the coach too much. And
So,
Tom's the one that's like, I'm just happy to be here with his like a beer hat in the stands.
but only in terms of iRacing. And then once I start driving, I still become a monster. So that's why I don't do it anymore.
That's why that's why Tom just tries to be fun dad, is so the monster doesn't come out.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, do you want to wrap up the show?
Yeah, we can. How long have we been going? It's only an hour, right?
Hour and 25 minutes.
Oh, that went so fast.
Yeah.
Cool.
The sun's coming up
Um,
behind you.
right. What are you doing this weekend?
This weekend I'm going to
Oh, you've got a big weekend coming up.
Yep, this week I'm going to Putnam for the chili cook-off with the winning formula.
I thought you were going to Road Atlanta this.
No, that's after Thanksgiving.
Oh,
This is
okay.
Putnam with Peter in the GT3 RS.
Oh,
So
Peter is going to this.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
Putnam. Okay.
yeah. And
So you're
then
getting more seat time in the GT3.
yep, and it's a event where me and Peter can like ride with each other. So I hope we get a lot of opportunity to do that and like just talk about driving, and it'll be fun.
Dude, that car is going to be incredible at Putnam.
You think so?
I think so.
The Cayman was pretty
'Cause
good at Putnam.
and the GT3 that I drove was pretty good at Putnam, and it didn't have aero on it, so it's got to be like a mix of
Mm,
the two.
yeah. Should
You're
be
gonna have
fun.
fun.
Yep, it should be a good time. And then Tom, you're Mr. Commentary for the whole weekend.
I'm right here. So yeah, Greg Creamer, John Fippen, who's the voice of Mid Ohio. If you go to the club races there or any live races, me and Larry Lefty McLeod are the commentators, and we each do 13 races. I got 13 and 12 ish, for 25 races, 3 days. Great. It's all on YouTube. You can just tune in and watch, leave it run. There's a live chat that I'll be watching. There's obviously our Discord I'll be watching. We're just watching race and talking about it. It's fun.
I think the fact that there's runoffs this weekend means that I'm for sure driving the electric car down to Putnam, because if I'm charging, that just means I just sit there and watch a race.
Dude, they have the clubhouse. I'm gonna text Aaron. Try to
Dude,
have Aaron open the clubhouse and have the runoffs on all the TVs in the clubhouse.
yes, that would be so much fun.
The last time I went to Putnam, they had all the TVs on, and we just watched like every kind of racing. I talked about it on here, but it was so fun to sit in that clubhouse and just watch races with like 7 other people coming in and out. Yeah, I
I
can't wait
got,
for you to watch like that.
dude, I got freaking nerd chills about how much fun this weekend's gonna be.
I'll give you guys like recommendations on all the fun races to watch at the end of the day, so you can just all like as you like sit and carry on and have a good weekend.
Yeah.
You can have like the best races in the
Oh, this
background.
sounds great. Oh my god, I can't wait for this. All right. Anything else, Tom?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Fun episode.
That was.
That was fun. I didn't think about this. Shoot. When I'm
Uh-oh.
wearing my headset, I hope it doesn't ruin my hair, and I hope I win.